Now, one of the claims being made on the part of the 6 men, only one of the claims, is that they would be likely to be held in one of those so-called supermax prisons, the one in Colorado. It's fairly controversial. So what's special about it? Last night I spoke to Lance Tapley, a journalist at the Portland Phoenix and a writer on supermax jails, and to Ray-Luc Levasseur, who's a former inmate at the ADX Florence Penitentiary in Colorado, the one in question. He told me what he thought the prison was meant to do.
The point of supermax, the point of extreme isolation, sensory deprivation, is to damage a person's mind. And it doesn't always stop with damage. It could be destroyed. And it doesn't always have to stop with the mind. It can move on into degrading your soul, your spirit. And a prisoner who's been damaged like this, who gets into sort of a fetal defense mode of just trying to hang on to humanity, from the point of view of the prison wardens, people who run these institutions, that prisoner is more controllable, more manageable.
For people like you, this is a very, very important judgment in Europe as it affects people in the United States.
Oh, yes. I still have co-defendants that are in prison and that are at risk from these policies.
For what kinds of crimes and what kinds of convictions?
Well, myself and my co-defendants were and are in prison for political offenses, and that's why we ended up in supermax.
Well, you say political offenses. I mean, how many people were harmed by what you did?
I was in prison for bombings that injured no one, that damaged property, damaged government property, damaged military property, and were done as protest of the apartheid system in South Africa and the wars that America was involved in Central America in the 1980s.
You say no one was injured. Was anyone meant to be injured, or was it a chance that no one was?
That was not the intention of those actions. The intention of those actions was to inflict property damage and to try and open the eyes and ears of both the government and the public that they had to bring an end to apartheid and bring an end to those wars in Central America.
Lance Tapley, in terms of opinion in the United States, is this an issue? Does it register on the radar?
Well, it didn't for many, many years. I mean, this is something rather new, and the isolation, the supermaxes, really began in the early 80s and accelerated. Now there are not many new ones being built. I don't think I can say that the tide has turned, but the consciousness has increased. A number of the national human rights organizations are working to try to reform the system. Very few politicians want to touch this issue, of course, because they're afraid of being soft on crime. This situation has to be put in the context of the American imprisonment regime, which basically has a rate of imprisonment that is 5 times the world average and is 4 times what it was 30 years ago. So you see, this is a particular situation, and it's created this horrendous scandal. I think it's probably the biggest scandal in America that not many people wanted to look at. I mean, people wanted to just forget about the people put away. But now, to some extent, because of consciousness in the rest of the world about what's happening in the U.S., some of the experts on the American supermax system, for example, are in Europe. I think because of this, there is an increasing consciousness in America. And also, you should be aware that although some people are in supermaxes because they've murdered other inmates or guards or whatever, that's a rare situation. Many of the people there are mentally ill, and automatically political prisoners are put there, not for what they've done in prison, but people who are high-profile prisoners, one way or the other, no matter what they've done, they almost automatically go into the supermax.
That was Lance Tapley, a journalist, and earlier you heard from Ray Luke Lavasser, a former inmate in a supermax prison. Well, the 6 men whom the American authorities want to extradite and on whom the judgment will come today include the radical preacher Abu Hamza, but also Babar Ahmad. He's been held in this country since 2004 and indeed had been arrested before that on suspicion of heading what the American authorities say was a terrorism support cell through a website which was actually based in the United States, although he lived in London. He's 36. His sister, Dr. Amna Ahmad, joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
What is his central claim about why, in arguing why he shouldn't be extradited to the United States for trial?
Well, in essence, in Babar's case, in December 2003, when the police originally arrested him and took the evidence from his home and workplace, that evidence should have then been they were legally bound to give that evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service to examine and then decide to put Babar on trial in the United Kingdom. But what actually happened is that the British police bypassed that and sent the evidence to the United States. So what our question is, why was the evidence sent to the United States when we have a sound legal justice system in the United Kingdom, and that evidence should have been looked at properly by the Crown Prosecution Service? They admitted this in writing in November 2011, that they were never actually shown all of the evidence about Babar.
But the American authorities say, of course, that the website, which is at the centre of the accusations against him, was based in Connecticut. Therefore, a federal crime, they argue, they want to put the case, a federal crime was committed. Therefore, he's subject to proceedings there. I mean, that's their argument. We can argue the rights and wrongs about what the CPS should have known, but do you accept that under the extradition arrangements that exist, they are in the right to argue that he should face a trial in the United States?
Absolutely not. I do not accept that, because as a matter of principle, extradition, yes, if somebody commits a crime in the United States and then flees the United States, he should absolutely be brought back to the United States to face extradition. But in Babar's case, he was living and working in the United Kingdom. The evidence was collected by the British police. They should have given that to the Crown Prosecution Service. We have an adequate justice system, centuries old, in the United Kingdom. The due process was that it should have been looked at by the prosecuting authorities here. So why should he be extradited? He's a British citizen. We've paid our taxes, lived and worked in the UK all our lives. Why should he have to? Why is our government, why are our authorities outsourcing their cases to the United States?
Well, I think, not for me to answer for the government, but I think what they would say is that in these days of the World Wide Web, things do cross borders, and the truth is that the servers, the website servers that are at the centre of this accusation, whether it's proved in the end or not, they are in the United States. Therefore, if the American authorities are right in saying that a crime was committed, they can argue that it was committed under American jurisdiction, although the computers in which he was were working were in London.
I mean, this brings me back to the same issue of sovereignty. I mean, Babar is not alone in this issue. Gary McKinnon, Richard O'Dwyer, Chris Tappin, the issue is exactly the same. The prosecuting authorities in the United Kingdom could and should have prosecuted for those crimes on British soil. Why are we subcontracting our cases to the United States?
Dr. Amina Ahmad, sister of Babar Ahmad, thank you very much for joining us.